everybody. Thanks for joining us. I know we're expecting some more folks to enter, but happy Thursday. Thanks for coming to our lunch and our event, Digital Detox. We are so honored at the Chamber to partner with First Amendment Voice and Steve. First Amendment Voice, for those of you who don't know, is a nonpartisan nonprofit group. Their goal is to reinvigorate civic awareness, which is wonderful. We all need that right now. So we're very fortunate to have Steve as a partner of our chamber. He's also a new ambassador, which really rounds out his resume, I might say, because he has a tremendous background, retired as a colonel in the Army after serving 25 years, and has taught as the Army chair at Marine Corps University. And that's just the beginning of his fantastic background. So we're super delighted to have him, and we hope that you'll all take something great from this session today. So thank you all for being here. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Susie. And also I'd like to thank Tyler for volunteering to be our tech support today. So if you get put on mute magically, Tyler is helping keep the program rolling, and that's always appreciated. So thank you. But Digital Detox, you know, the irony is not lost on me that we're talking about that subject over a virtual platform. So unfortunately, as I think we all realize, with the state of the health crisis, meeting in person is pretty much off the agenda, at least for the time being. Hopefully, we'll get back to in-person programming. We make it as dynamic as we can in this forum, and I do think it's enjoyable because our approach is that we feel we're going to learn just as much from you as hopefully we offer up during the course of the experience. And we will absolutely finish on time, so we're very appreciative and sensitive to the demands on everybody's time. If for some reason somebody has a technical challenge, feel free to type a note to Tyler in the chat, or and you should be able to see the chat function just by going down to the bottom of your screen and clicking on it. You can also click on participants to see who the other people are in the room. And then the last thing I would note down at the bottom of your screen is there's a little box called reactions. And so if you would like to raise your hand to make a comment, you can click on that. If you like what somebody is saying, you can give them a thumbs up like I'm doing right now. That will stay up for 10 seconds and then automatically disappear. You don't need to make it go away. And I see a lot of folks doing that already. We will record this as well. And then what we'll do is we'll publish it on our YouTube channel. And that way, for folks who wanted to be here but weren't able, they can go watch it there. The good news on that is that what it will do is it will show the speaker mode in the recording. So if for some reason you don't want to be on camera, you can just turn your camera off if you decide to share anything in this forum. It will not record anything that happens in the breakout sessions, and we'll do breakout sessions today as well. And that's where you'll be able to explore some other ideas as we get going. So that's the housekeeping right now. And then if for some reason you can't fix the technical solution, if you get bounced off for whatever reason, feel free to give Susie a call at the chamber. And I think Tyler's going to drop her phone number in the chat function right now. And I'll just say it to you as well, as 949-492-1131. And somebody will work to help you get back into the program. So what we're going to do is we'll start off with a very quick icebreaker, and I'm going to share my screen real quick with you right now. And what we'll do is we're going to go in, sorry about this, here we go. and just give your name. You'll go into groups of 4 in a breakout room. Tyler's going to activate the breakout rooms, and just share with each other sort of why you came today, what you hope to learn, stuff. And please make sure everybody gets a chance just to introduce themselves. We'll do this, and this is just a short exercise to make sure everybody knows how to use the breakout rooms. We'll only be in there for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll come back and join together in this larger group. So Tyler, if you have activated that, please, and we'll send people off. So it looks like everybody is back. And so we wanted to do, the one thing I would do is caveat this as we start getting into digital detox, that I have by no means mastered this space. I am an addict, probably like most of you are, although I've really explored and learned from others in terms of how to maybe mitigate some of the impact of the addiction that many of us face. So let me ask some questions. Have you gone to respond to an email that you maybe forgot to respond to lately, and only to find yourself reading a bunch of other emails, maybe taking a link to a website or lost on social media for the next 10 to 15 minutes, and you can't remember what the email was that you meant to respond to when you first got on your computer? Anybody have? Okay, I see some thumbs up going on. How about this? Checking your Facebook or Twitter feed or wherever you get your social media, and after you got a notification, right, you got this little beep or a light went off on your phone letting you know, banner shows up, and all of a sudden you realize 30 minutes have gone by and you were supposed to be, you know, taking your daughter to school or whatever it was, right? That is not an accident. The addictive qualities in our technology have been engineered into these platforms intentionally. And it's based on very solid understanding of neuroscience and understanding how our minds work. So what we find ourselves doing is, unbeknownst to us, becoming more and more addicted. The same things, that the vibration, the noise, the lights, the little numbers that are in there are triggering the same type of responses in our mind as drug addiction. And it's been engineered that way intentionally. So we'll get into more of that in a little bit, but I do want to show you some other ways that technology might be creeping into our lives where we might not realize it. And so let me pop this up on the screen for you. So how many cameras does your car have in it? And do you know? As of 2018, so Tom knows he's got one. I had to look this up and realize my car has 8 cameras. As of 2018, all cars are required to have at least one camera, and that's the backup camera. However, many cars, the Kia K900, for example, has 16 cameras and sensors to eliminate blind spots. The 2019 Cadillac CT6 featured the first automotive dash cam, which is very similar to police dash cams. And then the 2020 CT6 features cameras or some sort of sensor for the following: adaptive cruise control, adaptive park assist, automated emergency braking, automated high beams, blind spot monitor, driver attention monitor, that's an inward focused camera, lane departure warning, lane keeping assist. I mean, you get it, the list is long. I won't read the whole list. And these are great from a safety perspective. And they are probably the automobile industry nudging us toward fully autonomous vehicles at some point. But have you ever wondered where the data is going? All that data, because Tesla is not an automobile company. Tesla is a tech firm that happens to make automobiles. and they know about your driving habits. They've actually started an insurance company. How long do you think it's going to take for the other automobile firms that are collecting data to begin to see the financial opportunity in selling that data to the insurance companies? And what are the implications of that? Jeff Fowler with the Washington Post wrote a story about when his Tesla Model 3 was hit on the street, parked in Washington, D.C. And what he found out when he dug into it was Tesla showed him video of a bus sideswiping his car. They played it back for him and he was able to file a claim against the damage on his car. But all that data is being collected on us and it has implications. How about this one? Have you ever gone parking before? I know as teenagers, everybody probably has participated in that in some way, shape, or form. Some of the automobile makers are offering what's called chaperone mode, that as a parent, you can enact chaperone mode inside your vehicle to make sure that your teenage daughter or son isn't, in the back seat parking. So just think about the privacy implications of all of this technology that's steadily creeping into our lives. It will change the way we behave in the future unless we are intentional about how we manage it. Let me see here, we'll switch to these gentlemen. David Perlmutter is a best-selling author who's really explored this space quite a bit. I heard Chris mentioning in the breakout about, looking for, I think looking for some ideas, and I'll recommend books throughout this program, but David and his son, Austin, also an MD, co-authored this one, which I found to be really interesting in this space. How to mitigate some of the impacts of technology addiction is very much in there. And they ask questions like, how are we being distracted when we're driving? 42% of the time that Americans are awake now is spent focused on a cell phone, a screen of some kind, and it's only getting worse. So digital detox, at least where I got the term from, comes from Senator Ben Sasse writing a book called The Vanishing American Adult. And when I read it, and he talked about his 3 daughters and his wife and he enacting a digital detox regimen, if you will, for any time they're at the dinner table or at other times outside, whatever, no technology whatsoever, take it away. And this isn't just, his family. Silicon Valley executives routinely deny their children technology because they understand the implications of the addictive qualities that have been engineered in. You can see some of the other statistics on the screen there. It's only a matter of time before we've got more than 5.9 billion subscribers out there on cell phones, and it's crowding out the quality time that we use. Yes, go ahead, Jeremy. I'm going to play a short video just to give you a sense for another perspective on this and to convey that this is pretty widespread amongst Silicon Valley execs. So let me pull that video up for you and we'll chat about it.
So a few years ago, I heard an interesting rumor. Apparently, the head of a large pet food company would go into the annual shareholders meeting with a can of dog food, and he would eat the can of dog food. And this was his way of convincing them that if it was good enough for him, it was good enough for their pets. This strategy is now known as dog fooding, and it's a common strategy in the business world. Doesn't mean everyone goes in and eats dog food, but business people will use their own products to demonstrate that they feel that they're confident in them. Now, this is a widespread practice, but I think what's really interesting is when you find exceptions to this rule, when you find cases of businesses or people in businesses who don't use their own products. Turns out there's one industry where this happens in a common way, in a pretty regular way, and that is the screen-based tech industry. So in 2010, Steve Jobs, when he was releasing the iPad, described the iPad as a device that was extraordinary, the best browsing experience you ever had, way better than a laptop, way better than a smartphone. It's an incredible experience. Now, a couple of months later, he was approached by a journalist from the New York Times, and they had a long phone call. And at the end of the call, the journalist threw in a question that seemed like a sort of softball. He said to him, "Your kids must love the iPad." And there's an obvious answer to this, but what Jobs said really staggered the journalist. He was very surprised because he said, "They haven't used it. We limit how much technology our kids use at home." This is a very common thing in the tech world. In fact, there's a school quite near Silicon Valley called the Waldorf School of the Peninsula, and they don't introduce screens until the 8th grade. Now, what's really interesting about the school is that 75% of the kids who go there have parents who are high-level Silicon Valley tech execs. So when I heard about this, I thought it was interesting and surprising, and it pushed me to consider what screens were doing to me and to my family and the people I loved and to people at large. And so for the last 5 years, as a professor of business and psychology, I've been studying the effect of screens on our lives. And I want to start by just focusing on how much time they take from us. And then we can talk about what that time looks like. So what I'm showing you here is the average 24-hour workday at 3 different points in history. 2007, 10 years ago, 2015, and then data that I collected actually only last week. And a lot of things haven't changed all that much. So we sleep roughly 7.5 to 8 hours a day. Some people say that's declined slightly, but it hasn't changed much. We work 8.5 to 9 hours a day. We engage in survival activities. These are things like eating and bathing and looking after kids, about 3 hours a day. And that leaves this white space. That's our personal time. That space is incredibly important to us. That's the space where we do things that make us individuals. That's where hobbies happen, where we have close relationships, where we really think about our lives, where we get creative, where we zoom back and try to work out whether our lives have been meaningful. And of course, we get some of that from work as well. But when people look back on their lives and they wonder what their lives have been like at the end of their lives, you look at the last things they say, they are talking about those moments that happen in that white personal space. So it's sacred. It's important to us. Now, what I'm going to do is show you how much of that space is taken up by screens across time. In 2007, this much. That was the year that Apple introduced the first iPhone. 8 years later, this much. Now, this much. That's how much time we spend of that free time in front of our screens. This yellow area, this thin sliver, is where the magic happens. That's where your humanity lives. And right now, it's in a very small box. So what do we do about this? Well, the first question is, what does that red space look like? Now, of course, screens are miraculous in a lot of ways. I live in New York. A lot of my family lives in Australia, and I have a 1-year-old son. And the way I've been able to introduce them to him is with screens. I couldn't have done that 15 or 20 years ago quite the same way. So there's a lot of good that comes from them. And one thing you can do is you can ask yourself what goes on during that time. How enriching are the apps that we're using? And some are enriching. If you stop people while they're using them and say, tell us, how do you feel right now? They say they feel pretty good about these apps. Those that focus on relaxation, exercise, weather, reading, education, and health. They spend an average of 9 minutes a day on each of these. These apps make them much less happy. About half the people, when you interrupt them and say, how do you feel, say they don't feel good about using them. Now, what's interesting about these, dating, social networking, gaming, entertainment, news, web browsing, people spend 27 minutes a day on each of these. We're spending 3 times longer on the apps that don't make us happy. That doesn't seem very wise. Now, one of the reasons we spend so much time on these apps that make us unhappy is they rob us of stopping cues. Stopping cues were everywhere in the 20th century. They were baked into everything we did. A stopping cue is basically a signal that it's time to move on, to do something new, to do something different. And think about newspapers. Eventually you get to the end, you fold the newspaper away, you put it aside. The same with magazines, books, you get to the end of a chapter, prompts you to consider whether you want to continue. You watched a show on TV, eventually the show would end and then you'd have a week until the next one came. So there were stopping cues everywhere. But the way we consume media today is such that there are no stopping cues. the news feed just rolls on and everything's bottomless. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, email, text messaging, the news. And when you do check all sorts of other sources, you can just keep going on and on and on. So we can get a cue about what to do from Western Europe, where they seem to have a number of pretty good ideas in the workplace. Here's one example. This is a Dutch design firm. And what they've done is they've rigged the desks to the ceiling. And at 6 p.m. every day, it doesn't matter who you're emailing or what you're doing, the desks rise to the ceiling. 4 days a week, the space turns into a yoga studio. 1 day a week into a dance club. It's really up to you which ones you stick around for. But this is a great stopping rule because it means that at the end of the day, everything stops. There's no way to work. At Daimler, the German car company, they've got another great strategy. When you go on vacation, instead of saying this person's on vacation, they'll get back to you eventually, they say this person's on vacation, so we've deleted your email. This person will never see the email you just sent. You can email back in a couple of weeks, or you can email someone else. And so, you can imagine what that's like. You go on vacation and you're actually on vacation. The people who work at this company feel that they actually get a break from work. But of course, that doesn't tell us much about what we should do at home in our own lives. And so I want to make some suggestions. You know, it's easy to say between, say, 5 and 6 p.m., I'm going to not use my phone. The problem is 5 and 6 p.m. looks different on different days. I think a far better strategy is to say, I do certain things every day. There are certain occasions that happen every day, like eating dinner. Sometimes I'll be alone, sometimes with other people, sometimes in a restaurant, sometimes at home. But the rule that I've adopted is I will never use my phone at the table. It's far away as possible. Because we're really bad at resisting temptation, but when you have a stopping cue that every time dinner begins, my phone goes far away, you avoid temptation altogether. At first, it hurts. I had massive FOMO. I struggled. But what happens is you get used to it. You overcome the withdrawal the same way you would from a drug. And what happens is life becomes more colorful, richer, more interesting. You have better conversations. You really connect with the people who are there with you. I think it's a fantastic strategy. And we know it works because when people do this, and I've tracked a whole lot of people who have tried this, it expands. They feel so good about it that they start doing it for the first hour of the day in the morning. They start putting their phones on airplane mode on the weekend. That way your phone remains a camera, but it's no longer a phone. It's a really powerful idea, and we know people feel much better about their lives when they do this. So what's the take home here? You know, screens are miraculous. I've already said that, and I feel that it's true. But the way we use them is a lot like driving down a really fast, long road. And you're in a car where the accelerator is mashed to the floor. It's kind of hard to reach the brake pedal, and you've got a choice. You can either glide by past, say, the beautiful ocean scenes and take snaps out the window, and that's the easy thing to do. Or you can go out of your way to move the car to the side of the road, to push that brake pedal, to get out, take off your shoes and socks, take a couple of steps onto the sand, feel what the sand feels like under your feet, walk to the ocean and let the ocean lap at your ankles. Your life will be richer and more meaningful because you breathe in that experience and because you've left your phone in the car. Thank you.
So let's talk about the old.
That's the, you've got a lot to think about here. And so what I'd like to do is we're going to go back to breakout rooms. And yeah, and good point, Brenda. I see that in the comment. That was 2017. It's only getting worse. As a matter of fact, 79% of recent survey respondents report that their screen time has increased in the last 5 years. 41% say it has increased a lot. So it's a problem. I think most of us realize it's a problem, what to do about it. And so that's what I'd like to do is we'll go back to our breakout rooms, take 5 minutes and just come up with ideas, come up with ways. You might be already practicing some ways to mitigate some of the addictive aspects of the technology in your lives. And so we'll share them with each other, and then we'll come back as a group as a whole and share these ideas. Thank you, Tyler. So I see everybody rejoining us here. And let me just ask if anybody'd like to share some of the ideas or things you talked about in your group. Any good tips to share with the broader audience here?
Well, I think all the things that people are doing, it's not rocket science. It's common knowledge, but not common practice. It's like, Taylor's suggestion of, having a Siri reminder, put your phone away, and Arlen's suggestion of like leaving the phone behind when you're going to the store where you don't really need it. And it's just a temptation to keep you busy while you're standing in line. Those are all things that are easy to do. It's the discipline and the intention required to follow through.
Good.
For me, I just keep my phone off and I've got an alarm on it so that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the alarm goes off and I say, oh yeah, I should probably return some phone calls. And I make my phone calls then and I don't worry about it during the day.
That's the exact opposite.
See, it's blank. It's blank.
Nice.
Yeah, that's good. I actually moved that we have a national leave your phone at home day. That happened one time when I was leaving and I could not go back to get it. And that short-term anxiety of like not being able to use things, but it was freeing once I reconciled it. Once I recognized I was not going to have my phone, it was very freeing. But if everybody would do that, then man, I'd be talking to a lot more people too.
I've actually been proud of myself because, like you, Brenda, this is my car key, right? Mm-hmm. And I've actually gone to the car and forgotten my phone and gotten there and realized, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. I forgot my phone, completely forgot it, but it is so hard to mitigate the addictive qualities there. There are actually ways you can program it into your phone as well. And I'm sure some people talked about that. For example, if you book a table on Open Table for a restaurant on Del Mar, say, you can set it so it will automatically make that time when you're going to your business luncheon or meeting with your family a do not disturb time. And so your phone will not ring or do anything during that time. You can put, set it to do not disturb from the time when you're in bed. So some people do, 10 p.m. to say 6 a.m., something like that. There's so many different ways, and we'll share a bunch with you at the end as well. Anybody else have ideas that you want to share? Go ahead, Susie.
Oh, I just want to share, I do a lot of studying about habits and goals and things like that. And one of the things I've learned is about stacking things. So if you're stacking a goal with another activity, so if your goal is like, turn off your phone in the morning when you're having coffee, right when you make coffee, you kind of like stack that practice because you already make coffee every day. And so that's always helpful to me when I can stack things. And I thought that's an easy one.
Yeah, there's, I'm trying to remember the name of the book, but a neuroscientist wrote it, and the subtitle is Why Your Cell Phone Should Not Be Your Alarm Clock. And she was basically, and as a matter of fact, I'll share this screen with you real quick, it's a funny little, cartoon basically, and you see the iPhone in there in the middle and all the outdated technology surrounding it upset that the iPhone is the reason they lost their job. Actually going back to analog might be more helpful for our mental health in many ways. So one of the things I've tried to be disciplined about in the morning in particular, like you were mentioning, Susie, is I've got to make my coffee and get up. Number one, my cell phone is not even in my bedroom anywhere near. It's somewhere else in the house. And then I'll go down and I will touch my cell phone to actually stream some music on it, classical music on the speaker, so that I can listen to that and maybe read a real book, something that is tangible and spend the first half hour or hour using my brain in another way. Because I do, by virtue of my job, have to be behind a screen quite a bit. And I know, not all of us have the chance for complete withdrawal, depending on, what the requirements are in your life at this time. So yeah, any other thoughts or ideas out there?
I have a couple of ideas. One, I just got rid of Facebook like 6 months ago. So, and that was actually hard, but then my family's kind of pissed off about it because they say, well, I know you're not on Facebook anymore, but there are pictures out there about blah, blah, blah. But when I find out something, I'm generally really surprised and happy, and there's serendipity. Other things, I mean, I kind of do a lot of old school stuff. I still get 2 paper newspapers on Sunday. I've been riding my bike a lot more to the club. I've been trying just to slow down my life a little bit. And I just find that that helps a lot more rather than constantly be going and checking things and move.
Yeah, no, great points. And it's all, trying to reconnect there, just being in nature is super healthy. And especially if you can leave the technology behind, right? And not take it with you. It's really important for our mental well-being. You might be asking, well, what's all this got to do with the First Amendment, right? I thought this was, a First Amendment thing. Well, technology is shaping all aspects of the First Amendment. So the way we practice our religion, which is in the First Amendment, freedom of expression, freedom of the press, the media landscape is completely changed because of technology and what it's done to the business models of the media. But even citizenship. And so let me show you, I will go to the next slide here, the impact there. And this is pretty substantial. So Kathy O'Neill is a data scientist. And she's a Harvard PhD who worked at a hedge fund for years and got really scared about machine-based algorithms. And so she called these algorithms weapons of mass destruction. And she goes into how they are shaping everything from whether we qualify for a loan, how much we pay for insurance, whether we get into the college of our choice, whether we get hired in a job. Algorithms are playing a role, whether we get fired from a job. She goes into a vignette about a teacher in Washington, D.C., who was Teacher of the Year. And the very next year, she was fired because of the teacher scoring that was done as a result of student test scores and the impact of that. So there's really very hidden ways that it's impacting us, but in particular of note is our democracy. Everybody's familiar with the top 1%, the wealthiest of us out there, and how much influence they have with donations to super PACs and candidates and that sort of stuff. But the 1% of swing voters in swing states get a tremendous amount of attention. And let me describe what that means by saying who that is not. If you never vote, marketers never pay attention to you. They won't waste a dime on you. If you always vote Republican or always vote Democrat, they don't consider you swayable. So they're not even in swing states. If you have a history of voting, though, and sat out last election, you might get inundated in the next election with ads encouraging you to vote. But interestingly, if you're part of the 1% deemed persuadable based on complex personality maps, your social media feeds in those swing states, you will be micro-targeted with messages aimed at confirmation bias. What does that mean in just regular lingo? It allows politicians to tell you things they think you already believe in order to make you more likely to vote for them. And that's where all the dollars, the marketing dollars, go in many cases in election times. So if you happen to live in one of those states, you're used to it. out here in California, we don't get so much of that, right? We get our local elections and some other stuff, but we're not going to get that type of attention from the marketing. I think everybody saw, or a lot of people have either seen it or heard about The Social Dilemma. And how many people have seen that? Okay, good amount of hands on Netflix. So it goes into, it's a documentary on Silicon Valley and the impact of technology. And what really struck me at the end was every single one of those former Silicon Valley executives, many of them work for nonprofits now in order to try to push back on those addictive technologies or raise awareness about them. Every single one of them at the end of that documentary said the number one thing you can do is turn off notifications on this thing. Just turn them off. What they do is they steal our attention. They're engineered that way to steal, hijack your attention, and they've done it through neuroscience. And so that's sort of the problem we face ourselves with, and how do we regain control? We don't want to throw the technology out. We want to leverage it for its good aspects, while also regaining some of that white space, that quality time that Adam Alter was mentioning in the video. So we'll explore a little bit of that and talk about other ways to do that as well. Technology is one way, but some of us have mentioned some of the other ideas with respect to, not even having your phone on, right? Not having it within proximity, but getting out to nature, doing things that are creative as well. Writing, playing music, things like that, where you can take a break and engage your mind in the more reflective side of things. There's neuroscience out there, research that has demonstrated that our brains, not only is it impacting the addictive tendency of our mind, but physiologically our brains are changing because we're in constant sensory overload mode. And so the sensory receptive portions of the mind are physiologically growing. And what's happening with the deep reflective parts of the mind? Well, they're going into atrophy because we don't take them to the gym enough. We don't exercise them enough. And that's sort of where we're trying to get to with digital detox, is how do we get back to that space? So I'll give you an example. Let me share my screen one more time. And it's all about, we're blessed. I think everybody here lives in San Clemente or pretty close, right? So you've got water and beach. We're blessed to be able to be out amongst nature. I know me personally, it makes me less anxious when if I'm driving out there. I can always think back and be grateful about being blessed to be able to be here. So gratitude is a mechanism that gets us back into that white space in very positive ways. And there's a ton of research behind that, and I'll share some of that after we do a little exercise. And this one will be an individual exercise. And I'm pretty sure everybody saw that we were encouraging you to bring a thank you note, or at least a pen and paper, to this exercise. So what we're going to do is take 5 minutes, and what I'd ask you to do is write a thank you note to somebody you've been meaning to thank or wished you had thanked recently, and just be reflective and grateful about that individual. And then we'll talk about that when we come back. So take 5 minutes, and we'll let you know when that time has passed. So it looks like most of us are finished. We're getting there. It's okay if you're not done and haven't had a chance to complete it. Does anybody want to share either who they decided to write to and why, or Marcy, I see your hand up. There we go.
Okay, I'll be brief. This was paid for by Susie Lance. I wrote my note to Susie because she's my daughter-in-law. And do you want me to read the note or just
You don't have to, just
expound on it, or?
no, that's perfect. And so how do you feel after, because you might not have done that if we hadn't been intentional about creating the time.
Well, unfortunately, I do text her with my thoughts sometimes, and I'm thankful for her, but it is great to write a note physically. And I do like to write notes. I have a lot of thank you notes. So to give to people.
It's a great practice. Anybody else? Go ahead, Jeff.
I too wrote my note to Susie Lance.
I have a feeling Susie's going to get a lot of thank you
And,
notes.
well, the reason is, she does a great job with these programs, and so I told her that before, and I was probably the first one to sign up for this one. I mean, I was excited when you came out with this, and then secondly, she said some really nice things about our company, so that's the reason. I feel really good about sending it to her.
That's very cool.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So I know I've got a bunch. Oh yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
I wrote a thank you letter to my grandmother. She's always been like a driving force in my life, and she's kind of like the founder of our collision business here, and just always been a great motivator, great listener, great talker, and just kind of wrote a thank you letter to her. She's not doing so well, conditionally right now, so just kind of, she's always in my thoughts every day, every moment. So that's kind of what I did there.
That's awesome. And sometimes, we don't have the opportunity to express that, right? And so that's a way to make up for not being able to say it in person. So that's really nice of you to do that. I'm sure she'll enjoy it when she receives it. So it's therapy, if you will. And I haven't had to travel so much in the last year, given COVID. But when I was on the road, I made it a point to just take thank you notes with me. A lot of times I wouldn't stay in hotels. I would just stay at friends' homes where I knew it would be an opportunity for us to catch up. And I would want to, at a minimum, just leave them a thank you note, if not bring them a bottle of wine or something. And I've also found it a good way for me to connect with other members of my family, like Jeremy's talking about. And the gratitude itself is, there's so much research behind it, where it improves our self-care, both physically and psychologically. It can help you sleep better if you're intentional about it. And some researchers mention, some of you might have heard of gratitude journals. They specifically talk about writing something that you're grateful for before going to bed and how that helps with your overall sleep. Some research has pointed that it can help with problems of overeating. And cognitive scientists have looked at the psychology of eating and how gratitude plays a role in helping us with that. Of course, it can help your relationship. It can help us be more patient. I know for me, you might have noticed in the slide before that there was a barefoot in the water. If I'm coming back from having taken off my shoes and walked barefoot through the surf on my ride home for dinner, I'm way less likely to get upset at that jerk who just cut me off at the stoplight on Del Mar or, in Camino Real, right? I'm in another zone of life at that time. It helps ease depression, and it helps give you happiness that lasts. Those are all some of what the research has borne out. So ways that you can introduce that into your life, are ways to help recapture some of that white space that's out there. So gratitude is just a wonderful way to do that. And thank you notes are one way to express gratitude. Let me just give you one last thing as we're getting ready to wrap up. There's a lot of different stuff out there, and I'm going to share other ideas for digital detox at the end. But I thought the A.A. Milne, little cartoon up there kind of cut to the chase. Piglet noticed that even though he had a very small heart, it could hold a rather large amount of gratitude. For any of those Winnie the Pooh fans out there. We've talked about some of these things, but I wanted to just give you a bit of a list, if you will, ideas for taking away. And we also have a white paper that's getting published that goes into some of this space. It gives you a one-page printout if you want to print it out. And we'll email that to everybody from this forum, so you don't need to go look for it on our website or anything. But these are ways you can really recapture some of the quality time in your life just by reconnecting with nature, reconnecting with family, doing analog type things. But it requires intention. And so what do I mean by that? I'll give you the analogy from cooking, which is also, if you can cook without these things, put them somewhere else and you're focused on creating, right? It's just like playing music or getting a workout in or being out in nature, you're creating something. But the difference is intentionality. So if I go to Billy's and pick up a roast and I bring it home and put it in the crock pot before noontime, and then I cut up some fresh veggies from the farmer's market and I add them in there a few hours later, I might have to fend the family off before dinner time because they're all going to be over there. That aroma is just going to fill the house, right? And everybody's going to be really looking forward to that experience of a shared meal. Now, let me give you another analogy. I forgot about dinner today. I walk in the house and sun's already down. It's 6 p.m., 7 p.m., whatever. I'm too tired to really focus on it. So what do? I call up for delivery, or I pull something out of the fridge or the freezer that could be processed, maybe, probably isn't the most healthy thing for our body. It's intentionality. And the same thing goes with what we put into our minds. If we allow social media and the continuous scroll just to dump fast food for the brain into our minds, then a lot of that white space is getting crowded out. And, it's like when you go to the movie theater, popcorn, it tastes great, but it probably doesn't fill you up in a meaningful way. That's what I think of as social media and a lot of the email addiction that we get from our technology. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful for everybody today. If folks who you think might have been interested but just couldn't be here, and you can point them to our YouTube channel. It's just firstamendmentvoice.org. If you go on YouTube and search for it, we will publish the video, I think, in the next probably 24 to 48 hours. It sounded like our videographer was going to get right on it. And feel free to share that with others. And if you're interested in more FAV type stuff, First Amendment Voice stuff, feel free, Tyler, if you could drop in the chat function, our info@firstamendmentvoice.org for everybody. Just if you shoot an email there, we'll be sure to get back to you. Yes, Chris.
What was the name of that book again? The Brainwashed book?
Brainwash.
Brainwash. Okay, by who?
Yeah.
By who again?
David and Austin Perlmutter.
Okay.
And it's actually, I read it, I want to say I read it at the library. I checked it out of the San Clemente Library, which is part of the OC, Orange County system. So even if they don't have it resident there, they'll get it from, Ladera Ranch or somewhere else in Orange County, and it'll come in a few days. I've become a big fan of the library here only because my wife doesn't let me purchase books anymore. She says we've got too many of them around the house and no more, there's not enough room. So anyway, that's another way to recapture some of the quality time in your life. Any other questions? Yes, Susie.
Oh, there's another book. I think it was, the last name's Ferris that wrote it. It's The 4-Hour Work Week. Did you ever read that, Steve?
Tim Fair.
Tim Ferriss. Yeah. That's a good one too, for just kind of talking about when, setting aside certain times to check your email, or putting things in your, like an outgoing message that says, I'm off email right now. Just some good tools in there. And that's a really fun read. I think the book's been around a while, maybe 10 years, but it's a good read. I think it's The 4-Hour Work Week. Oh yeah. Brenda put it in the chat.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. I'll definitely have to look that one up. Any book recommendations, other book recommendations folks have?
I don't have a book recommendation, but an analogy. It's kind of like the Tim Ferriss concept, both in his fitness book and his work. It's like, what's the minimum effective dose to make things happen? And the analogy was, your phone should be like your toothbrush. You pick it up to use it for what you need, and then you put it down, and then you walk away. Like, you don't keep brushing your teeth all day, because they're not going to get any cleaner. And you want to use it like a tool to accomplish a job, and then walk away from it. That's obviously a discipline that we all are. That's the conversation that today's what this is all about.
Yeah, it's a great analogy. And the other thing, quite frankly, is, and a lot of people alluded to it, that comment right there, and Tom talked about it, but I call it shaping your environment, right? If the phone isn't even near it's not even in your bedroom, then it's definitely not going to be your alarm clock, right? You need to figure out something else. And if you put it somewhere else in the house for dinner time, then it's way less likely to impact you. I'll give you another example, because I'm a writer. I have to do a lot of writing. When I am writing, even though I have to be doing it on my computer, I take my computer offline. There's no Wi-Fi connection. So there's no distractions coming in. There's no way I could focus on creating that content if email banners were just flying in across my screen. So it's shaping your environment to allow you to be in the moment, really is, it's super hard to do. He mentioned it in the video, right? It's hard to walk away because we are addicted. But if you're intentional about it, it's absolutely something that you can do, and you'll probably feel a lot better, just like writing that thank you note to somebody. So thank you very much. I want to end on time and make sure, be respectful of everybody's time. And I think, well, first, let me thank Susie and Arlen and the whole chamber. They're just wonderful partners here in San Clemente. And I just am really grateful to now join as an ambassador and serve in that role. Thank you to Tyler, who is a fantastic volunteer with First Amendment Voice and is always supporting our programming. So thank you. And then our staff, who is not here, but they're the ones that do all the work behind the scenes and make this happen. So I'm super grateful for all of them. Susie, I think you had some things you wanted to close out with.
Oh yeah. Well, again, I want to thank everybody for taking the time. Your time is so precious. We appreciate you being here. And we'd love your comments on this. I know Steve's going to send something out, but if you want to shoot me an email, or if you have any ideas for future programs, the chamber wants to do an educational program once per quarter. And so we'd love your ideas. We have some things in the works. And also it got me thinking we need to have a book club. So Steve, let's talk about that offline, because a book club could be great. A lot of learners here in these sessions. So that's it. Thank you. We're so honored to have you and Tyler as ambassadors, and all of our members here. Thank you for taking your time.
Thank you. Everybody have a great day.